What should we do hereafter? And at that time, Prajapati said again, the. And he asked, have you understood? And human being said, yes, you have told us datta, give surplus in charity. And when it was the turn of demons, when they asked Prajapati, again he gave the similar letter, the, and asked them, have you understood? And they said, yes, you have asked us Dayadhvam, you have told us Dayadhvam, have compassion. And this is the Indian paradigm for new world order. Friends, this age of science, technology and computer, the age of material progress resulting in consumerism has brought us face to face with a moral and ethical dilemma in the global economics where markets are driven by monetary considerations of gain in terms of prosperity with sheer negligence to values which uphold human society. Unwholesome and unethical results of swaying industrialization have come to fore. With all amenities and comforts at command, the human society is not free from tension. The good expected of globalization has brought a number of positive changes in human life. All of us know that, so I won't spend my time in explaining them. But to be very precise, the entire world has become a global village where all amenities can be shared and we are acquainted to so many people in other corner of the world that we can understand their culture and thereby the world better. However, this good today is pierced by evils such as exploitation of the weak. If we do not awake from the slumber, for sure the evil of globalization and policy of open markets will swallow us. No more will we live as individuals with our independent personalities. For sure, we will be reduced to consumers and even to the lowest rate of commodities. Who could have predicted the extent of the globalization to which it has swept the identities of our personalities and has made us believe in the power of money and the illusion that it can buy everything? The paid pregnancy industry, especially in poor countries, is degrading womanhood. The reality shows which children participants are turning the children artists in child labor. So they are all of them, all the children have missed the fun of childhood. The young generation obliterates the real world around us in artificial world of smartphones. Music in waves of ocean, wind and the rumbling thunder of a cloud is nothing to young people as they plug in their earphones and lose sight of a child crying for help. The iPhone combining the iPod, internet communication device and phone contacts us to distant people at the risk of losing intimacy with our own. An e-personality, which is neither true nor false, is gradually replacing original personality of man and it starts working independently. Should we ask ourselves if we are happy with all the material gain that we have to our credit? Is it not a fact that the human hearts have failed to come closer in harmony? Is it not true that our lifestyle of comfort strips someone of the basic needs? Is it not a fact that our selfishness and insatiable greed is adopting, because of that, we are adopting fair or foul means to attain the desired goal? And one more problematic issue which needs our attention is a large number of youth moving towards unbridled relationships without marriage sacrament. There is an increase in the seekers of sexual pleasure regardless of place, time and person. Virtual relationship spans fictitious love and youth is tempted to form relationships without marriage sacrament. Contract marriage or living relationship driven by irresistible sexual hunger has created crucial problems and children born of such relationships have to live an insecure life and even the adults in a broken family are facing material and emotional problems. Ultimately, it is the entire society that suffers. This scenario should lead us to some introspection. Can we change the world for better future? What can we draw from the wisdom of great seers of India? We can offer to God as saving wisdom, and in this context, we can refer to the concept of Purushartha, the fourfold aim of human life, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Artha here, and I am especially going to emphasize Artha and Kama. Artha means wealth and worldly attainments. It is an instrument for the fulfillment of Dharma as well as Kama. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, he who knows how to earn wealth attains whatever object he desires. And Kautilya in his Arthashastra also gives importance to three vargas. He says, if one is to enjoy any of Dharma, Artha and Kama, any of these, in an excessive measure, it is likely to affect the other two and also its shape. The Mahabharata underlines that wealth should be earned through Dharma, that is righteous means, and not through adharma, unrighteous means. Only the wealth earned through Dharma is legitimate, and that which comes through adharma, such as crime and cruelty, is censured. Importance of material prosperity, individual as well as collective, has been acknowledged by our scriptures, Dharma Shastra, and also in the secular literature. The Atharva Veda tells us, Shatahastra Samahara, Sahasrastra Samkhya, earn by 100 hands, but at the same time, give by 1,000 hands. Earning wealth is given due importance. However, it is rightly mentioned that too much greed brings ruin, and too little of wealth brings nothing. So, what we find that even the Arthashastra and the Mahabharata, they have the consensus. Both of them say that whatever is earned through unjust ways is unstable. The ruler, Mahabharata says, who oppresses people by taxing them against all the norms laid down by Shastra, does violence to himself by his own hands. He gains neither material prosperity nor merit. We do find at the same time a strong current of thought about detachment for wealth, either on account of its perishable nature or for the sake of higher goal such as moksha. Maitreyi, for example, the seeker of immortality, when Yajnavalkya wants to give her wealth, she asked him a pertinent question, यदि मैं भगवो यम सर्वा पृथ्वी वित्तेन पूर्णा कथम तेनाहम् अमृतास्यामि? If you give me the entire wealth filled with wealth, can I become immortal with that? And the answer of Yajnavalkya opens our eyes, which he says, like the life of rich people, which is full of comforts, would your life be of immortality, however, there is no hope through wealth. What should I do? Maitreyi asked, what should I do by that by which I cannot become immortal? The Mahabharata proclaims youth, beauty, life, the whole of wealth, prosperity, and the company of the dear ones is transitory. Accumulation ends in destruction, rise ends in fall, coming together ends in parting, and life ends in death. Then, how to strike a balance between the statements which abhor Artha and which adore Artha? The reconciliation can be based on the attitude towards it. The paradox is ingrained neither in acquisition of wealth nor in want of loss of wealth. Money and property generates a host of attitudes such as pride, arrogance, vanity, etc., which exert their influence on the behavior of the owner. Wealth may result in well-being, justice, bondage, or slavery and oppression, depending on the manner it is spent. The pursuit of material prosperity of an individual, seeker, or of a nation is most welcome in our tradition as long as it does not deprive other from his wealth. If it does, then it not only causes violence to others, but it also becomes, the scriptures warn us, it also becomes self-destructive. For people or nations who possess excessive wealth, forget is that in the process of their pursuit of wealth, they many a time deprive others of their rightful possession of wealth. Hence, our scriptures tell us the surplus should be employed in charity and in public works. The Mahabharata shows us a direction in this matter when it says the royal wealth and the royal revenues should be collected diligently but without harshness, and they should also be spent diligently with prudence for protecting the people and for their welfare in every possible way. The royal wealth must be spent on public works like highways, waterways, sources of drinking water, wells, ponds, etc., and for public gardens. The king should take the responsibility of maintenance of certain kinds of individuals, which include destitute, widows, the sick, and the old. Cheating, robbing, and fraudulent practices are to be abandoned completely while earning wealth. Vruddha Bharadhanam Laksham Andasya Krupanasya. The other issue is of unlawful seeking of pleasure. In the Mahabharata and also in the Vatsayana Kama Sutra, importance of Kama and its significance in human life is discussed at length. Kama is a Sanskrit word which comes from the root kama, to desire. It's the origin of life. In the meaning of creation, there was Kama, that is desire in pure form. When this desire is directed to a particular object, it stands functioning with full force. In the form of a willpower, Kama is the force behind all achievements of human race. The astounding progress man has made in all the spheres of life, from science to spirituality, is due to the willpower called as Kama. However, about Kama also, first our scriptures, they define Kama. They say the joy that arises from the five senses, the intellect and the heart directed to the objects corresponding to each is called pleasure, Kama. This pleasure is one of the best fruits of our action. But at the same time, Bhima, who places Kama over the other ends of life, also tells us that this Kama is subject to Dharma. It is felt that unbridled fire of passion puts an end to romanticism and reduces love to animal instinct. For married couples, sexual union is a pleasant sport. For others, it is an unlawful game. The tender union of wife and husband is sacred, and hence, in Uttaramacharittam, it has been said, happy is that fortunate man who somehow obtains the pure, matchless love, which is the same in happiness and misery, which adapts itself to all conditions where the heart finds its solace, the flavor of which is unaffected by old age, and which matures as time removes the veil of reservedness into permanent deep affection. Advaitam sukha dukha yor angatam sarvas avasthasuya vishramo hridayasya prajasa yasmin havivasaha kalena karana kaya karinate yat prema sarikitam bhadram tasya sumakshasya kathama ekam hi prapyate. The Mahabharata says, one should regard virtue, wealth and pleasure one after another. One should not devote oneself to virtue alone, nor regard wealth as the highest object, nor pleasure, but should ever pursue all the three. And Bhima also says, he who practices virtue for virtue's sake suffers, he who again pursues wealth too much without pursuing virtue, that is dharma and pleasure, deserves to be censured. And hence, I come to conclusion. Life without meaning and purpose is no life. It is not circumstances beyond our control which make our life unbearable. It is because we mistake happy life for meaningful life. For a common man, a happy life is a life full of comforts, free from adversities, and a life free from ups and downs, also a life free from diseases. This wrong notion misleads man and takes away his sense of life from him. We do not live merely to do something more. We do not live more fully by mere doing something more, seeing more, and experiencing more than we ever have before. And this is called Vairagya by Patanjali. And to conclude it, I quote what Kathopanishad says. The good, the pleasant, these are separate ends. The one or the other, all mankind pursue. But those who seek the good along are blessed, who chooses the pleasant miss man's highest aim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Acharya. Yeah. The next speaker is Venerable Nguyen Tam from Vietnam. She is going to speak on Dharma traditions and environmental issues. Let's give a big applause to her.
Namaskar, most venerable distinguished guest, Professor Zipran. Today I will present my paper given to me the topic Dharma traditions and environmental issues. The earth is only the place where the human being can survive and sustain their life. Like a mother, the earth in which the nature comes to exist is the nutrient resource of life, where humans could have vegetables, rice, bread to eat, clean water to drink, fresh air to inhale. The term Mother Earth is not modern to us. It's what ancient as old as the earth herself. However, this natural bond has been painfully broken and remarkably demarcated. We live in a modern industrial time that the human have become more and more individualistic due to the wrong conception that nature is to serve human life and nature should be conquered. Modern industrial technology has caused global warming and most natural disasters all over the world, just as tsunami, earthquakes, ozone pollution. Human life becomes risky. To save the life of the human in many generations to come is to preserve nature and to solve the environmental crisis. How to solve the environmental problems? Swami Tripurati said, our present environmental crisis is in essence a spiritual crisis. We need to reflect ourselves on the ancient teachings as the spiritual compass to guide us to save the earth, the mother earth, for the sake of life. This paper will address the significance of Dharma and Dhamma in Veda and Buddhism related to nature and the world in which we live. How these two ancient traditions can reveal the message to us in order to save the mother earth. In Atharva Veda says, Prithivim Dharmana Dritham. This word is upheld by Dharma. Dharanat Dhamma Nityayahu. Dharma is called so because it bears and holds up the entire creation. Dharma derived from the root, dhara, that means to maintain, to hold, or to keep. Dharma signifies behaviors that are considered to be in accord with order that makes life and universe possible and includes duty, rights, law, conduct, virtues, and